Welcome to another episode of Ask Me Anything, where we sit down with nonprofit leaders from our greater Helena community and learn more about their organizations and how they make our hometown great. Our February 2024 Nonprofit of the Month is the Last Chance Curling Club, and we have Ryan here today. Ryan, introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been part of the organization. You were founder of the organization.
I am. Myself and four friends back in 2019 started curling down in Butte because we didn't have a curling club here in Helena. We were invited from another colleague from one of the founding members, this gentleman, Ben Carr, and his team name is the Larry's Curling Stooges.
Okay.
So we went down to Butte every Sunday from about 5 p.m. to 11.
Feels like a missed opportunity. They could have been Larry Curling and Mo.
They could have been.
Right?
But he likes Larry's Curling Stooges.
All right, that works too.
And so we did that for about a year, recognized that traveling on icy roads in the winter to and from Butte every Sunday, not always the safest decision to make. So we looked into the potential of starting a curling club here in Helena. And by 2020, we had a full 10-team league. By 2021, we had 20-team league.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a good experience that grew rather rapidly.
Right. And so you're from a place where curling, and you might want to say your name and things like that. But tell me, Ryan, you're from a place where curling is very, very popular.
Yep. Ryan Michael Schwackert, born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
There we go.
I can say that for my first 20 years living there, I never really knew much about the sport of curling.
Okay.
It took another 12 years or so before I landed out in Montana to pick up on it a little bit during the 2016 Olympics. And out here, for better or worse, we only have a couple of curling clubs. But back home in the Midwest, there's, I think, no fewer than 70.
Oh, wow.
Some of them might be 2 sheets, 3 sheets, 4 sheets, which is just a designation of the space that you have to curl on.
I was going to say, we're going to have to get into that because the only sheets I know are like to the wind, and that's a different thing entirely.
Or the 800 thread count.
I mean, that's true too. When I hear like 2 sheets, 3 sheets, though. Yeah.
To the wind.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
what I'm thinking, and that's not what we're talking about at all. So in 10 words or less, tell us what your organization does. It's one of our favorite things.
We support, promote, and educate the spirit of curling in Helena.
I think you just nailed it. Perfect. Okay. So we have some questions from our Facebook audience and from our own brains. But so this might be a really obvious one, but I'm sure that there are people who don't know what curling is. So what is curling?
Curling is a fairly old sport, I think dated back to the 15th century. Mm-hmm. You take granite curling stones, 16 per set, and you compete against another team of either 2, 3, or 4 individuals. Mm-hmm. And the objective is to get your curling stone from one end of the ice into what's called the house. Mm-hmm. It looks like a bullseye. Whatever curling stones are closer to the center of the house are the ones that count. Mm-hmm. And matches could be 4 ends, 6 ends, 8 ends, 10 ends. And that's it. You sweep, okay. You deliver a stone, try not to get hurt when you're on the ice. Mm-hmm. And definitely a big part of curling is what's called the spirit of curling. Yeah. And that's a lot of camaraderie, friendship, mm-hmm. calling a good shot when you see one. Mm-hmm. It can be competitive for some, but I think the reason I really appreciate the sport is it's more about sharing that space with individuals and, again, giving them a high five or dabbing them up for a good shot. Yeah. And if you have a bad shot, then somebody might, give you a little bit of consolation. Say, oh, better luck next time.
Okay. So you brought some curling equipment. You didn't bring a stone because they're very heavy and large, and you've recently had them in freezing rain.
Correct.
So they're not in the best of condition to bring into an office space today, but you brought some other equipment.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So the evolution of curling, I didn't bring any corn brooms in, but very early on, curling brooms were classic corn chaff. Okay. And you'd wrap them tight with string on the outside, and that's how you swept. Okay. Maybe 80 years ago or so, it started using...
So not that different from like your kitchen broom.
Almost identical.
Almost identical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The handle might be a little different. Versus fiberglass, wood, that sort of thing. But that's, mm-hmm. again, curling brooms, traditionally with that corn stalk. Mm-hmm. And then hog hair or horse hair. So this is a hog hair broom, mm-hmm. tightly woven bristles. And again, the purpose of sweeping is to reduce the friction and allow that mm-hmm. stone to travel a little bit further. Mm-hmm. I'm not a scientist by trade, but I understand that An object in motion stays in motion
Right.
unless an equal or opposite force acts upon it.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't go faster. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times when you're first introducing people to curling, they say, oh, the sweeping must make it go faster.
No, it makes it go further.
It just allows it to travel a little
Mm-hmm.
further. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we had a hog hair broom. This is
Okay.
one of my personal brooms.
Mm-hmm.
We don't use these on indoor ice too much because they do shed a lot of hog hair, and that can cause some issues with the curling stones.
Yeah.
So we are now in
maybe the ice skaters later don't like it either.
Oh, they do not.
Yeah.
Or hockey. Now we are in the evolution, and although it's a little bit of a dirty broom, this is a carbon fiber handle with a fabric head.
Okay.
And so the same concept still applies. You're using this to sweep your line on the curling stone and allow that stone to travel a little bit further. So if you want to give those a test feel, you can see
a little
bit difference.
This one's lighter, but this one's not that heavy either.
Not too heavy. Yeah.
So I mean, you're moving them fast when you're using them.
There's definitely some effort going there.
And so, like, let's say forgive me if this is an over reduction of the sport, but if somebody has no idea how this works, I mean, a comparison to shuffleboard isn't completely inappropriate, right? Just much bigger.
Shuffleboard's a good comparison. Chess on ice. That's another thing that people have compared it to based on the strategy.
Yeah.
So with chess,
it's not just throwing something and hoping it hits. You're thinking about how yours is going to move other stones, and
that's right. You're setting up the board.
Okay.
So your first shot might be what's called the center guard, and there's a center line that goes down the middle of the ice sheet. You might want to put a stone there, which then prevents the other team from putting a stone in the house.
Right.
Or once you have a couple guards up, you might call what's a draw shot, which is your curling stone draws behind and then sets up as a guard. So there's definitely some strategy involved there.
And then some skill, because you actually have to be able to get the stones where you wanted them to go.
That comes with practice.
So let's say I'm going a little too fast and it's going to go too far. Then you wouldn't be using this, right?
That's right.
You'd
so there's
a resistance
position. There's 4 positions. If you have a team of 4, you have your lead, you have your second. Pretty easy to know if it's first or second delivery. Then you have a vice skip and a skip. And those positions, skip or vice skip, are calling the shot. So they're actually sitting in the house that you're shooting to or delivering to, helping determine where they want the stone to go. And they're kind of reading the other team's strategy. They might also have their own strategy, hopefully, in mind.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it's not just about brute force or just throw it and hope it hits.
Well, or for me, if I'm playing shuffleboard, it's also just a little bit of like, how many beers have I had and can I get things to the right spot at all?
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm only good at shuffleboard when I've had a beer. So. And
that is part of the curling community. We appreciate a beverage. Part of that spirit of curling is that if you beat a team, oftentimes you have a beer afterwards. You talk over the game a little bit.
Just help me visualize. So you say you have one sheet. Is that because that's how big the arena is, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. A sheet of ice, for common parlance, is just whatever space you have to curl on.
Sure.
So, for example, we were in Phillipsburg this last weekend, the second annual Phillipsburg Outdoor Bonspiel. That is one sheet of ice, but we only accommodated 4, lanes. So on some sheets of ice, you can have up to 5, and some sheets of ice might only have 2 spaces to curl.
Okay, so on one like ours in Helena, which is kind of a traditional hockey rink size. Yeah, so that can hold how many lanes?
5.
5 lanes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you've got multiple teams curling at one point. Okay, that makes more sense.
And your end lines, like between, it pretty much is shared. So if we have A, B, C, D, E, the outside ones are pretty much close to the boards, and then those middle ones, you're sharing basically a space that's out of bounds for both sides.
Okay, so stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane, preferably. If you see an errant stone, try and grab it, right? There's a big concern there because somebody might have their back and not realize a stone's coming. So you've got to be on top of that to kind of control the stones that are within your lane of ice.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. So one of the challenges, you and I were talking in advance of this, and one of the challenges is ice time. It makes sense that if you're doing a 10 to midnight shift, that maybe indicates that ice is at a premium.
It is.
So what are the other challenges, or tell me more about that one?
So one of our hopes long term is to develop a dedicated curling facility in Helena. I know Missoula's got a goal for that as well. Currently, we've been working with the ownership group at Seed Arena, and that is really the only open ice time that we can get. There might be some openings on the weekends, but that's a challenge for folks that live in Montana. Winter sports, winter activities.
Yeah.
And we do run October to May. So we have
Okay.
3 different sessions. That first fall and winter session, again, are the later ice times. And then in the spring is when we can get a little bit of better ice time because there's less competition for the available ice. But we are up to $260 an hour. So the cost is also a challenge. We're trying to keep our rates at a level that allows us to also pay off some of the investment for the curling stones that we purchased, but also covering ice time, supplies, materials, and then the ability to also host some of the Learn to Curl and Open Curl events.
Sure. Well, speaking of, you've got one of those coming up.
We do.
Learn to Curl.
We do.
March 3rd.
March 3rd.
I have it marked on my calendar because I think that, especially if people comment and tell me that I should, I think maybe HACF is going to try to come out there and maybe we'll take a little video and add on. So if you want to see that, put a note. Keep in mind, I am an uncoordinated person, and so we very well might get footage of me falling on my face, which I'm sure somebody will appreciate. So comment if you're interested in that, and we'll see if we can get out there. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
What else is it? I mean, you've talked a bit about how it seems like this is a sport with a real sense of community. What are some of the other reasons people might want to get involved?
Well, I think some of the camaraderie and just meeting new people. We had a couple that joined from Seattle last year. They said, we curled for a little bit back in Seattle and we got to meet, engage with new folks. It's also an opportunity. We do a fair amount of traveling. So our team and a few other teams within the league will compete in under 5 events, which means that you have kind of an amateur status.
Okay.
So you might have the ability to go curl at an under 5 event in the Dakotas, in Washington and Oregon. We are part of the Greater Dakota Curling Association. So there's kind of a regional aspect to the sport as well. It's been a really awesome pleasure to meet people from Rotary Club, from VFW, from a couple different other nonprofit organizations that have helped partner with us and even come out and rented stones. So we've had some corporate events on the ice.
Okay.
Dick Anderson had like an offsite event. So that got 30 or 40 people together as like a team building exercise.
I was going to say, I feel like there's probably some leadership lessons here about maybe communication or strategy or other things as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nonverbal communication. So there's different call signs that you can call off for. If you want what's called a takeout shot, our team does the hand off the top of the head. Sometimes you're calling how much weight you want delivered, which is how fast you're pushing off the hack. And some people might actually touch the bottom of their shoe, which means backline. So there is some of that nonverbal communication piece that's interesting to develop for your own teams, like your own specific language.
Yeah. But I guess the thing that stands out to me, because when I think of league sports, the one that pops to my mind is something like bowling, which is a team thing, but it's also incredibly individual where, you have to be the one putting the balls to knock down the right pins. Whereas this is going to be more communal.
Totally.
Because you're not going to do any part of it really alone.
Yeah, even at, and we haven't really curled doubles much, but even when you're 2-on-2, you still have one other person that you're communicating with. Traditionally, again, we try to have 4 people on a sheet or on a lane at any given time. And so there's definitely that communication piece between the skip and the person delivering. The sweepers are communicating. Do you want to sweep on this side? Do you want to sweep in front of the stone? Do you want to be in front of me? So there is a lot of that. And, sometimes you might have a disagreement.
Yeah.
And the person delivering is saying, give me more ice, which means move the broom a little bit further out or curl the other way, because last time we curled this way, it just went to the boards. And there can be a little bit of that frustration that builds where it's like, I told you that was going to happen. And you're like, well, I didn't know, I had to see it for myself. So there's a lot of trust that you do give into your skip and vice skip calling the shots. And I know that I probably overspeak on occasion. So I do my best just to sit back and say, unless I really see something egregious or there's like a decision that's about to be made that I'm really against, let it happen and see what comes of it.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because I think, especially for those of us who work in our main field and things like that, we look for recreation or we look for competition and sometimes for both, but this seems like it's a pretty interesting mix. So I'm excited to come try it out. I think it'll be fun.
And we are as well.
I have broken arms on ice before, but that was when I was an ice skater.
Okay.
And I was not good at that either. So this seems safer.
But
Shoes versus skates seems
shoes
safer to me.
versus skates, and you can control the speed at which you travel.
Yes,
On the ice skate, sometimes that just carries you faster than you want to go.
But let's talk for a second about, you've got some stuff coming up, and we've talked about your Learn to Curl event.
Yep.
But you've also got some other stuff coming up in March. So tell us a little bit.
So the Last Chance Curling Club has participated and been involved with organization, well, essentially a group of businesses that are doing something called Craft a Better Community. Mm-hmm. So that's 10 Mile Creek Brewery, Point S Tire, Loft, Yoga Studio, and Gulch Distillers. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, a lot of breweries started shifting away from the weekly nonprofit model to the monthly. Mm-hmm. And so Craft a Better Community was those 4 businesses getting together and say we can make a bigger impact with fewer nonprofits involved, but they really do strongly encourage those nonprofits to be more engaged. Right. I think a lot of times in the past it was a passive sort of income source. Yeah, you
kind of went in and people were like, oh, cool, there's a nonprofit here tonight. Maybe I'll drink an extra beer, or maybe I'll throw $5 in the jar. But this is a bit more of an opportunity to really chat with people and share more about your sport.
The way we set it up, both at Gulch, which is every Wednesday in March, mm-hmm. and there's 5 Sundays in March. So the first 4 Sundays at 10 Mile, we'll be hosting a specific event.
Oh, fun.
So we're going to have some floor curling, a couple different events at 10 Mile Creek Brewery. We're also going to be partnering with Loft on the last Craft a Better Community Sunday, which is March 24th, to have maybe some yoga-specific stretches and poses for curlers.
Okay.
So muscle groups that are involved are the trapezoid, tricep, glutes, and quads.
Okay.
A lot of times after curling, even 1 match, but like this last weekend in Phillipsburg, 5 or 6 matches, those are the muscle groups that hurt the most.
Yeah.
So Hannah down there was very happy to engage with us in that way, and we've tried to get a few people to come down before. Yoga's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. I used to go quite a bit myself, but I've been out of practice, so I'm looking forward to that workout.
That's kind of a fun connection to make.
Totally. Yeah. And that might also encourage
somebody who's into yoga to
come out and try curling. Yep.
Yeah. I can hold this pose great. I'm going to be great at this.
I'll be a great curler if I can just do this.
Yeah.
And then at Gulch on those Wednesday events, it's a slightly smaller space, so we won't have the floor curling set up there, but we will try and host what we're going to call our spring curling kickoff party. So again, spring curling session starts March 20th. And that Wednesday night will be at Gulch Distillers. Okay. Just kind of come out with some of the new curlers, maybe give us some tips and tricks. We have an ABCs of curling sheet that gives them a little bit of the terminology, so I have a chance to go over that with everybody. And we're also hosting, or hoping to host, a live viewing of some of the curling tournaments that are going on. Oh, wow. So both at 10 Mile on the big screen, we have like a big inflatable movie screen, and we can stream some of that from Curling Canada. And then at Gulch, we'll have it on a smaller screen. We're trying to decide if we want to pick like the 2016 gold medal match, or maybe something more recent. So great opportunities to come out and learn about curling, and a great opportunity for us as curlers in Helena to connect with people in the community that are interested.
Well, thanks for coming in. This has been fun to chat about. I know we've gotten, in the last few years, there have been some different kind of recreational activities that have popped up in Montana. I mean, I know there's like pickleball is a big thing, and
it is.
And so we've been, one of the ways we notice those is that we'll find nonprofits that are supporting these types of gatherings and sports through Greater Helena Gives, which, quick plug, that's coming up. So if you're watching and you are a nonprofit, registration is probably already open. It's going to open on Valentine's Day this year. And if you're not with a nonprofit, you want to be saving May 1st and 2nd in your calendar, 8 p.m. to 8 p.m., because hopefully we're going to make over $300,000 for local nonprofits.
Emily. We will.
Really, I'd love it if we made $350,000, because that just is fun. But anyway, we're going to work on that. So it's been a really good growing event, though. And so I know that you guys have participated in that in the past.
We have.
And so that's coming up, too. And we also have our grant program open now, which is something that you guys have participated in as well. So I believe we helped purchase a stone or two. Yeah, something like that.
We applied, I think, for a full set, and we were granted enough money to help offset the purchase of, I believe, like you mentioned, paying off a stone. Currently, Just a quick edification, our club owns 3 of the 5 sets.
Okay.
So that's a big deal because
Yeah.
once we own all 5, that additional income that's coming in from our league resources will hopefully allow us to offer more learn to curls, more open curls,
more ice time,
yeah. And also potentially we've talked a little bit about sponsoring certain teams that might not be able to afford to travel. So a team that wants to go do a Bonspiel, which is a curling tournament, in Missoula or in Butte or in Billings or even out of state, as a club, can we help offset a little bit of the travel costs?
Sure.
So we're growing, and we're looking forward to what next week has to offer.
And in your dream world, you'd get $2.5-3 million and just build some dedicated ice.
A dedicated ice facility in Helena would be awesome. Yeah. I've lived in Helena for 14 years. We're the capital city. I think we should be a showcase for a lot of different things that Montana has to offer.
Yeah.
And curling, I hope to be one of those one day.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure if you could get people there earlier than midnight, it would help with some of that. But this sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, we're excited. So stay tuned. I have a really good chance we're gonna
March 3rd.
come out and see if we can make fools of ourselves or become great curlers. One of the two is almost certainly going to happen. I'm confident about that. Well,
I hope for both.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming and telling us more. And we'll share more. The dates for all of the Craft a Better community nights, we're going to share those on our Facebook page too. And for more information about our nonprofit of the month, Last Chance Curling Club, please check out our website, HelenaAreaCommunityFoundation.org, or our Facebook page. And we also have videos of our previous Ask Me Anythings as well. So if you want to catch us having a lot of fun with nonprofit leaders and learning even more about the cool things happening in our community, sign up, subscribe, whatever buttons you hit to see things you like more often, do the things. So thanks so much.
Thank you, HACF.